Number 14, Utah travels to the Coliseum to take on the USC Trojans. This game will be Saturday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time. I believe it's on Fox. Now, Utah, they knocked off USC twice last year, including the beatdown in the Pac-12 title game, a game that really wasn't all that competitive. They clearly got to Caleb Williams last year. It was not his best performance, but it wasn't as bad as what we saw last week against Notre Dame. He had 3 first-half interceptions, and if you look at the interceptions, the last 2 in particular, they were there at the end of the first half. It looked like Caleb Williams was getting frustrated and was just forcing the ball, like desperate to make a play, to just inject some life into the offense. And it felt like, to an extent, man, there's a time and a place for that. But the second quarter is not that time. Maybe in the fourth quarter when you got to have it, and hey, a pick is what it is. But you have to understand the situational football because it felt like he was doing a little too much. And I just hope that was a one-time performance, because something tells me against a team that he's 0-2 against in his career, he might try to force a little bit here against Utah as well. The question is, can USC get the offense going a little bit against Utah? Now, Utah's defense, has been exceptional this year. They have not given up more than 21 points in the game. Now, a lot has been made of Caleb Williams' performance last week, but they got to help him, man. I mean, the offensive line sounds like, if you listen to Lincoln Riley this week, he's going to tweak a couple things, and they got to make sure that Caleb Williams isn't facing as much pressure as he's faced at times this year. Notre Dame defenders last week registered 33 pressures on Caleb Williams. That's the most he's been pressured this year by a mile. Prior to that, Arizona State had the highest mark. That was 18 pressures. So nearly double up against Notre Dame last week, and the offensive line needs to play a whole lot better, because if there's one thing we know about Utah, it's that they have some game breakers and have some guys that can take over the game along the defensive line. The other question in this game is, can USC's defense step up and stop Utah's resurgent rushing attack? Now, last week, Utah ran for 317 yards. It's the first time they've eclipsed 300 yards on the ground since the Colorado game last year. Now, a lot of people will react and say, well, it's Cal. Fair enough. I understand that Cal's not a juggernaut on the defensive side by any stretch, but that was only the 4th time that Cal has allowed 300-plus rushing yards since Justin Wilcox was hired 6 years ago. So dating all the way back to 2017, they've only allowed 300-plus rushing yards 4 times, and one of them was last week. Obviously, Jaquindon Jackson returning to action was huge, but Sione Vaki's emergence is also very, very significant. If you look at where he's at right now, a guy that's played on both sides of the ball, man, he's got a certain vision level, a toughness, a decisiveness. He showcases a lot of athleticism. And if you look at the 1-2 punch that they have at running back now, even knowing that the quarterback position is not giving you much, I think Vaki staying on the offensive side might be more impactful for Utah moving forward. They're still pretty good at safety. They're going to be just fine right there. And I think the offensive line last week had by far the best performance of the season to date against Cal. They were moving guys off the ball, and they might be able to do so against a Trojans defense that has allowed 40-plus points in 3 straight games for the first time in program history. I will say this, though. I do think they did a better job tackling last week. I do believe that. Watching it back, it didn't feel like there was many guys diving at ankles. It didn't feel like there was many guys getting juked in the hole. In the 3 games prior to last week, SC had missed 1 million tackles, it felt like. But it felt like last week they got Notre Dame ball carriers to the ground. So that's an encouraging sign that they're moving in the right direction, but they can't have the self-inflicted mistakes on special teams, and they can't have the self-inflicted mistakes, obviously, on offense behind their best player. Utah is 13-4 against the spread as a road underdog in the past 10 seasons, and Utah is 12-4 against the spread in October since the start of 2018. I like Utah in the game. I look at USC. I think they have all the bells and whistles that you could possibly want. They got a ton of speed. I don't trust Utah's offense at all. But based on what I saw last week with Vaki and Jackson, I think that rushing attack will neutralize time of possession. I think they could possess the ball 35 minutes in the game. And I look at Utah, I think they're a very physical football team. Will USC get back off the mat? I certainly hope so. I honestly hope they win the game. I'm kind of indifferent. I don't care who wins, to be honest with you, but I hope they look better, because I don't want to be beating up on SC the rest of the way. But I think Utah is just the more physical team. I think Utah is a team that's kind of found their identity the last couple of weeks. And regardless of who's playing quarterback for them, I think they have what it takes to be able to disrupt enough of Caleb Williams' offensive rhythm to be able to ultimately get the win.